Hey guys, Batman v Superman came out this weekend, directed by Zack Snyder, starring Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, and Gal Gadot, and Jesse Eisenburg. This is a spoiler-free movie review, however, after my rating, I will give some spoilers and some thoughts on some spoilerish things. I can tell you right away after seeing this movie, it is going to be a little bit controversial, or maybe not so controversial, but divided among the fans. Some people are going to love this movie, and some people are going to hate it. I'll be honest, I'm somewhere in between. There's certain aspects to this movie I just love, and certain aspects I absolutely hated. The best analogy I can give this movie is kind of like the screenwriter came up with a recipe for a Thanksgiving dinner, or, some dishes to serve. The director then made this gorgeous dinner of everything we wanted. Everything we could ask for is in this movie. But then the editor, or somewhere along the lines, because this is a collaborative effort, something went wrong, and somebody took all the ingredients, put it all in the blender, and went served it to us, and we got this sloppy mess that has everything we want in it, but you take a sip and you can taste the potential there, but it's just a mess. Because that's the biggest thing, is I did like this movie. I did not love it. I did not hate it. It's just the biggest thing that disappointed me is that there was so much potential in this movie. And there were so many things I liked that could have been expanded upon to make it one of the best movies ever. But they just went in directions that I personally would not have preferred. Some people obviously do. So let's talk about it. So first of all, let's talk about the pros to this movie. The biggest one being is something that I don't think a lot of people are going to be divided on. And that is the portrayal of Batman by Ben Affleck, who does an amazing job, and it is my personal favorite take on the Batman we've ever had. And that's because he is absolutely brutal and violent in this movie. And I've always thought the biggest issue I've always had with these kind of movies with Batman, Superman, Daredevil, etc. is that this whole no-kill policy, which they kind of hint to in the Daredevil series with the Punisher. These characters, it's like they put them in jail and then the guys just break out again and wreak havoc. And they put them in jail and they break out and, they knock them down and they get back up. This version of Batman is almost like the Punisher. I mean, he is not afraid to fucking stab you in the chest, shoot your face. I mean, he definitely kills people in this movie. I mean, he's got Gatling guns on his freaking jet and car and all that sort of stuff. I can't even begin to explain it to you. He kills people. The Punisher Batman. And if you are thinking about bringing your kids to this movie, if you have any sort of qualm about violence and your kids seeing that, I would not bring them to this movie. There is some violence. If you don't care, then hey, go ahead. And I know that's going to be one of the biggest things dividing people is, they didn't like how in Man of Steel, he killed General Zod. Superman's not supposed to kill anybody. Oh, boo-hoo. That was the fucking best part of that movie. It was fucking awesome. In this movie, I guarantee there's going to be people, Batman's not supposed to be killing people. And guess what? You can tell in this movie that he used to not kill people. Alfred he's talking to him a few times in this movie like, man, there's a lot changed. He's kind of hinting that, Batman, you're kind of becoming the villain in a way. And they kind of hint at that, that he's almost like the Harvey Dent quote in The Dark Knight, where he says, either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that's almost what's happening to him. He's writing that line in this movie where he is just so fed up with shit. He's not putting people in jail anymore. He's ending it quickly. He's not letting his friends die anymore. He's not putting up with shit. You even see in the line in the trailer where he's like, if there's even a 1% chance he's our enemy, we have to take that as an absolute, and that sort of stuff. And I love that. Moving on from Batman, there's Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. The biggest issues I've heard with her is people saying, well, she's not the right actress. She doesn't have big enough boobs, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Personally, I thought she was sexy as hell, and I thought her portrayal of Wonder Woman, while brief in this movie, was very good. She kicks some ass, she looks good. I had no problem with her. I actually really liked her in this movie. If you liked Superman in Man of Steel, you'll like Superman in this movie. It's the same character. I don't really need to go in depth with him. I liked him. One thing I will say, and one of the biggest pros to Man of Steel and this movie, is I love that Superman theme music. Whoever wrote that music, those couple piano keys. And just like every other Zack Snyder movie, this movie looks beautiful. It is a darker toned movie, but the cinematography is great. But now let's get to the cons, the part you don't want to hear, but you need to hear before you see this. Fucking Jesse Eisenberg. What the fuck were the casting people thinking with him? Now, I'll be honest, when he was first announced as playing Lex Luthor, there was a huge outcry. Personally, I was actually one of the defenders of Jesse Eisenberg, saying, you know what, he plays the same character in like every movie, but maybe this is going to be that one time, kind of like Heath Ledger when he did the Joker. Maybe this is going to be this role where he just takes us all by surprise. And I saw a couple fan images online where I was like, you know what, if you put his face on a bald guy, has the potential to be really cool looking. But instead, we get fucking Jesse Eisenberg, the same Jesse Eisenberg that's in every Jesse Eisenberg movie. He's all wiry. He's always on jittery and coffee and has these little isms, and I just fucking pissed me off. A villain is supposed to be menacing. Sometimes the best part of a movie that has a villain is the villain. You know, when they have really interesting motives and you can kind of see where they're coming from to a certain extent, where they don't even think they're the bad guys. But in this movie, he's just bad because he's bad. He's Lex Luthor, so he's bad. You don't understand his motives at all. And just his portrayal of him, his acting is fine. There's nothing against his acting. He's a good actor, but he doesn't do anything different than his other movies. And the direction they decided to go with him was different. It was a risk. Praise to him for taking a risk, but it was the wrong risk because it was horrible. It just took me out of the movie. I'm like, And then we have Doomsday, who they show in one of the trailers, and they basically showed the entire movie in that trailer, which was a shame, and that's a whole nother negative conversation. But basically, he looks like the Abomination from the Incredible Hulk and a deformed Ninja Turtle, or maybe that troll thing from the first Lord of the Rings, had a baby, and you have this. This is not the Doomsday that we know from the comics, and that's fine. They went a different direction, just like with other characters. But again, it was a direction that I personally did not like. And I'll go a little bit more in my spoiler portion after my rating onto why I didn't like that, but I don't want to give that away here. But I just did not like Doomsday. And honestly, the rest of the cons I have for this movie are pretty much spoilers. So if you want to see those, stick around after my rating or go see the movie, come back to this video and skip forward. And honestly, guys, I have a few more cons, but they are spoilers. So I'm not going to give that in this non-spoiler portion. So go see the movie, come back and watch the spoiler portion. Or if you don't care about spoilers, let me give you my rating and then watch the spoiler portion. In the end, I got to give this movie a friends with benefits. It's got some fun action, it's entertaining, but it will disappoint you if you're looking for a good story. Alright guys, now for the spoiler portion. These are mostly just cons or directions they went in the movie that I couldn't give away in the non-spoiler part. I'm going to start right off with the rest of the Justice League intros. They introduce us to Cyborg and the Flash and Aquaman, but the way they do it in this movie just pisses me off because they basically just shoehorned it in here. Like, this movie is so focused on introducing the next movie that it doesn't focus on this movie and making this movie great. So they basically have this file or email or something that's basically like, okay, let's click on the first one, introduce him. Okay, let's click on the second one, introduce him. It's like, could they have been any lazier with the writing? At a most, it should have been an after-credit sequence. I have no problem with the characters that they introduced, just the way that they did it. I thought it was very lazy, and it didn't make me hyped to see them anymore. It was just like, oh yeah, let's make sure we introduce all these other characters. It has served no purpose to this movie whatsoever. Leave it as an after-credit sequence or don't put it in there. And then there's Doomsday. I could probably go on for an hour about why I hated that entire plot of Doomsday and why there are so many plot holes with the way he was created. I'm going to try my best to condense my hate for that portion of the movie into this little part. So first of all, Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg, has Zod's body. He has the ship because he somehow manipulated some senator or some government official to basically give him access to this stuff. Then, even though he has Zod with him, he cuts off his fingerprints to put into this machine when he could have just used his hand to do that. So I don't know why he cut off his fingerprints. That was kind of dumb. And then he somehow manipulates this Kryptonian futuristic AI to do whatever he wants, even though he's Jesse Eisenberg, and the thing should know it's not General Zod. You'd think he would have some sort of sensor technology or something, not just a fingerprint scanner like a fucking iPhone. And somehow magically, Jesse Eisenberg's character knows he's going to create this big monster by cutting his hand, dripping some blood on Zod's face, and lowering him into the water. That made no sense whatsoever. How the hell did he know what the fuck he was doing? What? Oh, God, I hated that. And then he's born out of this sack, and he just instantly hates Superman. I have to kill Superman. for no real apparent reason other than it was Lex's blood, so it must just automatically know what he wants. I think it would have been much greater if he would have just fucking killed Lex Luthor right there. Just like Lex Luthor thinks, oh yeah, I created this thing, and then it fucking slaps him and breaks his neck, because I fucking hated Lex Luthor. Also, I hated the fact that they had kryptonite in this movie. One of the biggest things I loved about Man of Steel is that they didn't need to use kryptonite. One of the biggest, laziest things I've always thought about the Superman story, and why Superman's always not been as interesting to me as Batman, is kryptonite. It's like you have this godlike figure, oh, but if you have this little rock, basically anyone can just be like, haha, I kill you. You know what I mean? And it's just so... create a new way to defeat Superman. You know, come up with something new. They've already went so many different directions with everything else. They didn't have kryptonite in the first movie. Come up with something new. The other issue I have with this movie is that Batman hates Superman. He's vengeful. He hates him. He wants to kill him with a Kryptonian spear for like years. He just wants to murder Superman. But what changes everything and puts him on his side? Their moms have the same first name. Yep, they're both named Martha. Martha Kent and Martha Wayne. Well, I guess we have to be best friends then. That was so stupid. Like, I could understand him hesitating, but okay, here's what I think this movie should have done. They should have had Batman hating Superman for all the same reasons they do in this movie, all the destruction, whatever. Then he goes to work with Lex on creating some new thing. They don't have kryptonite. They create some new technology that they figure out, you know what, this is going to hurt Superman. Maybe they invent kryptonite. It's not just some radioactive rock. And it only hurts him if it's actually like against him, or it breathes it in like the gas that they use in the movie. But not just, oh, if it's around, he becomes weak. That's stupid. So they develop this thing, and Batman, he's so vengeful, he's so hatred-filled, he becomes like the Punisher, you know, he's on such a rampage killing guys, he actually starts killing innocent people in the process, kind of like Superman did in the first movie. He has some collateral damage, and in a way, he's becoming the villain, the bad guy of the movie. Make Batman the bad guy of the movie. Not on like an evil bad guy, but just someone who's getting out of control. And Superman, all of a sudden he hates him because what happens? Lois Lane gets caught in the crossfire at some point. She gets injured, or she almost dies, or she does die. And so Superman's like, I have got to put an end to Batman. But how do they fight each other equally if there's no kryptonite, like I said? Well, if you remember from Man of Steel, when he's on that ship, it's almost like it makes him normal. It doesn't like weaken him, but it makes him more like normal, like everyone else, because it's as if he's on his home world. Have Batman figure that out somehow, so they fight inside that ship. So that's how you bring that ship into play, right? So they're fighting each other on an even playing field. And while they're fighting, every once in a while, you know, they have a few blows and they stand up and they're resting and they have some intellectual conversation while that's happening. You know, kind of like Punisher and Daredevil on that rooftop in episode 3 and 4. They're talking about their different ideologies of it's okay to kill people, it's not okay to kill people. And somewhere along the lines, they get on the same page, and then he changes Batman's mind, and Lex Luthor's watching this whole thing, and he has some other scheme. Not Doomsday, but something else. I don't know. Come up with something creative. And so they go team up to stop him. Not this big, stupid monster. They could have saved that. And honestly, I could nitpick this movie on with things like there's this huge nightmare sequence, and I actually thought it was really cool, but again, it served no purpose to this movie whatsoever. It played into the fear of Batman, of fearing Superman, kind of, but it was obviously leading towards the next movie with a new villain. It also shows the Flash not really making any sense in the scene that I didn't fully understand, where he's saying, you know, you're right about him. And it's like in this weird electric thing, I don't know, time traveling or something. And he's like, you were right about him. It's Lois Lane. She's the one. Blah. Something like that. And it was just like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? And that took me out of the movie so much. But I hate to nitpick on this movie because I wanted to like it so much. But there are so many issues with it. But like I said, I did give it a friends with benefits because in the end, even with all its issues, I was still super entertained. But it's kind of in the middle of the road for me because I'm probably going to forget about it pretty quick. It's not that memorable. There was some slow parts to it. It was sloppily put together. But I do recommend seeing it because you can have fun with it. So, anyways, I don't know what else to say. I've blabbed you guys' ears off. Please comment below. What'd you think of my review? Please subscribe if you're new to my channel. And stick around for some more movie reviews if you can handle it. Go.